Okay, my friends, this is a video, and it's from a guy called the POV channel. He discovered a geological anomaly on Google Earth, and here it is right here, this tower looking thing. And you see all this black and then the red right next to it. I think I know what this is, and I believe this is biological, and I'll show you exactly why. When we come out to, as he's walking up through here, you're going to see that he's walking through all muscle tissue. This is all literally muscle tissue. And he's going up through this whole area, and you can see this is all tissue. This is not accidental, collection of sediments. This is body tissue. And now he's coming up further, and here is this tower. Now don't forget what we're looking at here. We're looking at body tissue all around. You see it? Huge, huge, huge thing. It's gigantic. And this is the tube that sticks out of there. And I believe that is literally part of the plumbing of a heart. All right, so here it is sticking straight up out of here. Now, wherever these tubes come into your heart, there's a whole batch of gooey stuff around it that locks it in so that it can move and flex around a little bit, but it's still locked in to that section of the heart. And that's what all this gooey stuff is around here. So let's take a look at that. But don't forget, you see all this? That's not just accidental. This is not just erosion and the layers of erosion. Absolutely not. This is bodily tissue. And I believe this was a heart. All right, don't forget now, red and black is the colors of blood. And in the heart, they're right next to each other. You got red and you got black, and a bloop, 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 bloop. So this is what's going on here. And these tubing has to run all the heart blood back through the body. You see that black and you see the red right all around it? Now I'm going to let him talk, because he's going to be talking about this gluey stuff that makes no sense to him.
It is some type of naturally occurring geologic formation. Let's take a closer look at this.
You see, that's tissue. This is tissue stuff. This is wrapped around tissue that's holding that tube in place.
Bubble rocks.
Same thing with that.
I mean, how does that even naturally occur? What kind of erosional forces can create rocks that look like perfect bubbles just sticking out? Look, you can even see where they fall into the ground. There's all these little tiny bubble rocks, and then it's...
This is the nature of the way things implant and hold into your body. They are all over your skin. They're everywhere. They're everywhere in your body in the fascia. This is basically fascia, which surrounds this tubing and holds it from being ripped out. All of these things are little anchors, so that your heart can move all around like this. The tube can move around, and these are going to keep it from being pulled away from the rest of the heart. And the same thing in your body. It's called interstitium. It's fascia.
It starts to get bigger and bigger, and then the whole thing just falls off into the ground here, where you can actually see.
All right, you see it right there? This is all locking this into this part of the muscle. And this part is showing up blackish, so there's a lot of vein blood here, and this appears to me to be an artery. And they run right next to each other, right inside one, right to the next. And this is it's all a tissue. You see this?
Wow.
You see that? That's not erosion. No way in the world. And you see the black right next to the red? This is a heart, in my estimation. This is going to be a heart. Look at way over here. This is still part of the same structure here. Right, see the black right up next to the red?
There's more bubble looking rocks right over here. I would love anybody with a background of geology to tell me, how the heck does something like this get created?
Okay, my little friend, I am telling you right now, that's muscle from a heart. And what you were just looking at is one of the main arteries, apparently. All right, so he's looking at all of these things, which to me, I understand what they are. You see all these little layers? Nobody came up here and made those little stripes in there. And this is not from geological erosion and sedimentation. This was a heart at one time, and it's eroded, and that's one of the tubing bits. And it's a small one, really, because they're going to be some huge,
it's a very
gigantic
strange
pieces.
rock, completely out of place in this landscape. Everything around here is very smooth and clearly eroded by water. And this thing looks like it just flew out of the ground or just exploded out of the ground and just started crumbling into little pieces. And
he's right. It's totally foreign to the rest of the rock that surrounds it, because it's a heart. And they have two different distinct, well, three actually, types of different distinct blood.
the rest of this place is just as weird. There's a cool little slot canyon right there. Alright, here's a good angle of it. So that wall almost looks man-made. It almost looks like brick.
It's tissue.
On the sides of it.
I'll put a little drone out there and check things out. Okay, watch this now. Here we go. Don't forget, this is all muscle tissue. And he's going to be flying a drone up here, looking at all of this stuff. Now, here's the key. Watch this picture right here. You see that circle? That is exactly 100% complete circle. And that is this feature that he's looking at. Why would this be such a complete circle? It's a blood vessel, that's why. And you see all this twisted little stuff here? That is the signature of heart muscle, is a twisted batch of muscle bundles. Now watch. He's going to come down here a little closer. You see that? That is a blood vessel. You know, and I want to tell you something right now. Here's a good time to do this. I was working with my friend Tyson, and he did the catalase test on some of his mud fossils, and he was excited because he got a good catalase response, and you will. Now, when you get it right into an artery, it bubbles like crazy. You still get catalase reaction around it, but if you know what to do, if you understand what you're doing, you will understand where the catalase reaction is most intense, and you look for something like this with a circle, and you say, well, that's an artery. If you can see it's red in there, you put a little catalase, it'll just bubble up like crazy, and it'll continue doing it because it will work its way down into the enzymes. Now, around here, it'll bubble up a little bit for a little while, but it won't be like here. You just have to know what you're doing. So I've decided, don't bother doing the catalase test, because you're going to see them bubble everywhere. And if you're not familiar, you don't know what you're doing, it will confuse you. And you say, oh, everything is an artery. No, not everything's an artery. You have to find the signature first of all. Well, first of all, you have to find what you can consider, you understand to be a certain type of body part, or that it is from a body of some creature, and then you find these circular patterns, and 99% of the time they are some form of a blood vessel. And the arteries have the red blood in it, and they bubble up like crazy. The black blood's kind of hard, and it doesn't have that same ability to bubble up like the red blood. The red blood just bubbles up like crazy. So he's on top of an artery right now. I can absolutely guarantee you of that. Let's see if we can see anything else here. Here it goes. See how it's all twisted around here? That's how these tubings are. You see this? All patterns of muscle. And where these things are growing in here, usually there's still a little bit of red blood in these spots, because they love the red blood. Plants love red blood. You see? This is all the gluey stuff that glues it in. That's the inside of the tube. And this is all the heart muscle around here. You see that? That's all heart muscle. That's what it is. All right, here he is again, looking at this kind of bubbly stuff and trying to understand it.
What kind of geologic forces can create this kind of rock?
All right, I'm just going to finish it up here, and I'm going to show you the kind of forces that do create this, and they're biological. All right, let's start with this. You remember he's walking through those canyons and he's seeing all these kind of patterns. This is muscle that has eroded. This is the back of the guy's van. I don't know where, you know, I get a lot of these pictures. I don't know where they're from, but they are real. And this is in my shop. I have this right here. This is a piece of muscle, and that's the muscle right here. And that's all the different banding, same sort of stuff. And here's some red where the arteries ran out. That's a piece of tendon. And I have another shot showing it with the actual bone. Here's the bone right here. It's right up in here, and it attaches to this little piece of tendon, which runs to the muscle, which is here. And there's my goose Caesar. They all turned solid rock. You see that? That's his feathers. And there was the stories that the earth was flooded because of these giant creatures, and they were giant creatures. There's no question they were here. Now, again, that's the muscle here. Now look at this. He's asking about those little balls. You see these? These are what they call Moki marbles. Those are in your skin and all over your organs, anywhere there's muscle tissue, and anywhere where it has to be flexible and come back to where it was. And your heart, your tubing in your heart is going to go all kinds of different ways. You see these football players and stuff, their hearts get twisted in this way and that way, and 90% of the time, well, more than that, hopefully, they come back to where they're supposed to be. And this is nothing but here. This is Hunstanton Beach in United Kingdom, if I pronounced it correct. And this is the same balls in a wall of flesh, and that's the skin that was above it. That's how big these things are. Here's what they look like in the body, in an actual body of a creature. Remember all those little tiny balls all over the place? That's what they are, and they hold things, primarily your skin, so they can stretch and pull this way and that way and come back. It's called interstitium. And this is what their artist rendition is this. And you go this way and that way, and all these little balls, they're everywhere, as you can see. And that's what was holding that heart tube, so that it could flex, but it was still held in together. Now, he was in one of these things. I don't know which one of these little arteries, I would believe. And now the blue is where we see the black blood, and you see that all over the place, right next to the red blood. And these tubes have to go in and be glued around them, so that the tube goes in and does what it's supposed to do, and then there's glue around it so that it doesn't get ripped out. And that's the glue that he was looking at. You see that basically he's in an area something like this, where all that gooey glue holds these tubes, and the tubes are perfectly cylindrical in the center, and then they have a surrounding tube around it. It's identical to what he was showing. And all of this stuff is the stuff that was on the mountains around the edge. He's just absolutely gigantic creature. And I don't think he was in the aorta. This would be much, much bigger than what he was in. He was in some of these little tiny blood vessels. Basically, even though it's enormous, I don't think they were as big as what an aorta would have been for that particular heart. But I could be wrong. You see this? This is how your heart works. It sort of twists, a big long loop of muscle, and it twists and forces this way and pulls this way, and forces and pulls and so forth, I believe. And you have the black right next to the red. They're all in the same spot. And the tubes have to be glued in. You see that? That's not millions of years in one picture. That was a gigantic creature. I cannot explain it, but they died. When they did die, they were preserved in certain cases. This is a tendon. And that little round ball right there, you see that ball and this stuff coming out here? I have the exact same thing in my shop as I showed you before. And here it is right here. All right, this is the tendon. That's the ball right there, and it comes out and it attaches to the muscle. This piece right here is what was preserved in the ocean because it's tough, very, very tough compared to the other part. You see this ball? Look carefully at that ball. Let me show you what it looks like. And you got your bone here, which eroded away in the ocean. There's that ball. And that ball is this ball right here. And that's right in the center of the tendon. And it locks the tendon up to the muscle. The muscle's cheap. It erodes away. The bone's cheap. It erodes away. This is tough. Tough, tough, tough. So that's what they end up with, this here. And there's the circle. You see that circle right there? It attaches, it locks it in. It like pins the tendon in that spot. So the tendon can still rock this way and that way a little bit. But it's pinned in the center right up against the bone. And that's exactly what we see in this right here. The bone would have been right here, pinned to the tendon, and then the muscle would have started here and run down this way. And that's why this is so tough and sticking up out of the ocean. It's not a million years, it's not even a million seconds. Now this one I find really interesting. I don't know what somebody just said to me, said, "What did you think?" I said, "I think it's a heart." You see this black over here in that circle, and this red, red, red? I mean, that's blood, and that's the vein blood. As far as I'm concerned, that's what it has to be. I can't see any other possibility here. I mean, that's as red, red blood as I've ever seen. And you see how green everything's growing around here? And then this is black, and that's another circular entryway of something. Again, people just send me things. They don't even tell me where they come from. I have no idea where this is. So if you know, that would be fine to hear from you. But this stuff is all over the world. There's nothing special here. You look at Vermilion Cliffs, and it's just nothing but stomach tissue. Well, let me show you quick. You see this? This is Vermilion Cliffs, and so is this. That is stomach lining. And so is this. And there's a guy standing on there. It's that big. And that is the stomach lining, just as this is right here. All right. These creatures, the earth was a creature as its own self. You see, this is Vermilion Cliffs again. Blood. You see that? Look at the blood here. What happens in the stomach lining and other places is you got absorption going on right at the surface. There's a ton of red blood right underneath the surface. You know, this could even be the small intestine. You do absorb a little bit of stuff through your stomach, but 95% of everything is absorbed in the small intestine. And that's where you have a ton of blood flushing right up against the tissue, and the molecules are going in and out of here. The good stuff is coming in, the bad stuff's going out. And that would give you all of that really red, 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 red blood right at the right on the surface almost. And here is showing an eroded spot, and you can see the red blood right there. So this could be a small intestine, or it could be the stomach. I believe this one over here is the stomach. I'm pretty sure of that. But it's going to be, you're going to have a small intestine attached to the stomach. That's just the way it works. You got your stomach, you got small intestine, you got large intestine, you got your colon, your bowel, rectum. All that stuff is your digestive system. And you have a heart that has to pump the blood to make all this other stuff work and run this blood through everything else. And that's what he was looking at, was all that gooey stuff right around here. You see all that little gooey, tiny little balls sort of, you know, gluing that tube so that it can bend a little bit, but it won't rip out of the body. All right, think of what you got here. Just give it a little thought. You're always moving. That thing there is not going to just stay rigid. All right, it's got to be gluey. It's got to be gooey, and that's what this gooey substance does here. That wraps around all of these main tubing parts. Now, which part he was on, je ne sais pas. I do not know. But there's so many of them. He could have been anywhere. But they glue to the heart itself, and they run the tubing to wherever it has to go, and all that blood flushes out or comes in, out and in, out and in. The blue is the used blood, and it would turn black, and that's what we saw. And the red is the fresh blood, and that's what we saw as well. And then we saw all these layers of muscle, and there is a ton of muscle in a heart, a ton. All right, my friends, so I'm going to leave it at that, and hopefully I can get a hold of this guy. I couldn't figure out how to get a hold of him. I left a message saying I was going to do a video on it, but he's getting a zillion hits on it. He's got 185,000 hits almost in 2 days. So he's getting a lot of coverage on this, but I don't know how to get through to him. There's no email or anything. And he said, I want anybody that knows about this to give me a shout out. And he says, I would love to hear from you in the comments. And I did. I commented right here. I said, I'm pretty sure I can explain what you asked. I'm doing a video on it now. I'm going to put another comment up here that it's a heart. And I can see he's looking at him. He's giving hearts to everybody, so he's replying. I didn't get a reply. I just don't know anymore, I got to be honest with you, why I don't ever get anybody responding to anything I do. But it, you know, he's got like 185,000 hits on here just a couple of days. I'm showing some pretty remarkable stuff. You'd think I'd get more hits, but I get like a couple thousand, and it just stops. So I don't know why that actually happens, but it does. Anyway, that's it for today. This is, in my opinion, that is a heart. And they're everywhere. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. So if you just open your eyes and start looking around, think about what you see. Think about the patterns. And then relate it to the biology, and you got it. And here's all those little balls. Right there. And those are the things that glue things in place.